2029, the digital world could change completely.
2029, that's the year Google, Microsoft, and IBM are all preparing for. The year the lock on your entire internet, your bank account, your messages, everything you thought was private, stop working all of a sudden. The experts call it
Q-Day. That's what experts call the moment when quantum computers are able to crack the encryption.
Talking about quantum computing.
Experts warn that quantum computing risks making today's encryption protections obsolete.
Quantum computing.
Quantum computing differs from traditional computing.
Let's put this up there. U.S. dominance in quantum technology.
While everybody is piling into an AI trade, I spent 3 weeks working out where the money actually goes when this lock eventually breaks. What I found is that the most profitable company in the entire sector earn more than any listed quantum business on the planet. And you cannot buy a single share in that company yet. And that's where the business opportunity lies. And it all comes back to one technology: quantum computing. Before we spend a single minute on investment thesis, let's understand what quantum computing is in the most simplest terms and what risk it poses to our cybersecurity. Here are the 3 facts to understand about quantum computing. And they're pretty simple. You'll get it really fast. Fact number 1. Your computer runs on binary system, 1 and 0. Inside the machine, the physical form of that system is transistor, a tiny switch that runs on and off, 1 and 0, to get the result you actually want. A quantum computer runs on qubits instead. A qubit doesn't have to choose. It can be 1 and 0, both simultaneously. You already know this idea. It's the Schrodinger's cat. Seal a cat in a box with something that might have killed it, and until you open the box, the cat isn't alive or dead. It's both. The moment you open it, it becomes one or the other. A qubit is that cat. Now, the cat gets you halfway in the process. A qubit holding 1 and 0 is the same time is strange. But on its own, it's just a coin spinning in a dark room. It isn't a computer yet. What makes it a computer is the second trick, which is called entanglement. Take 2 of these spinning qubits and link them together so tightly that they stop moving as 2 separate things and start acting as one. Neither has decided what it is yet. But the instant you look at one, it lands on 1 and the other becomes 0, or 0 and the other become 1 every single time. It doesn't matter if they're sitting side by side or on the opposite end of the planet. They decide together in the same instant. Einstein hated this so much, he called it the spooky action at distance. Superposition gives you the possibilities. Entanglement is what lets you use them, because the qubit stop being a crowd of separate guesses and start working as one connected system. That's the moment a quantum computer stops being a curiosity and becomes a genuinely different kind of machine. Now goes to fact number 2. Qubits are unbelievably fragile. The leading quantum computers, the kind Google, IBM, and Rigetti builds, have to be chilled to about 100th of a degree above absolute zero, colder than deep space, colder than anywhere in nature. And that temperature has to hold permanently, or the whole equation collapses and hands you a faulty result. Today's best quantum computer still gives you about 1 step in 1,000 wrong. That's quite good enough. Put it into perspective. The chip in your phone runs trillions of operations without a single mistake. That gap is the entire industry, and that is the entire investment window. So the race isn't about building more qubits. It is about building qubits that stop making mistakes, which means when a company brags about its qubit count, that number tells you very little. The number that matters is the error count. And that's how you pick the company actually making progress in the right direction. There's one more thing you need to understand before you go to the investment part. So the entire lock on the internet comes down to a single piece of math. And it has a name, RSA 2048. The name is after 3 investors. The padlock on your browsers, the bank login, the crypto wallet, the messages you think are private, all of it runs on one piece of math. And it works on a very simple yet elegant multiplication, multiplying 2 enormous prime numbers together. And that's easy. The computer does it in an instant. Ask it to work backward the whole thing to find the 2 prime numbers you started with, and it simply cannot do it. With numbers this big, it will take the fastest computer on Earth longer than the existing age of the universe. So that's the whole law. So it's not that it cannot be picked. It's that picking it takes longer than anyone can ever wait in their lifetime. A quantum computer is the one machine that can do it backward in a matter of few hours. And you might be thinking, the machine doesn't exist yet. What do I have to worry about? But here's why that doesn't save you. Somebody can copy your encrypted messages today, as we speak, sit on them, and open it the day the machine arrives. Your data doesn't have to be legible now to be stolen. If that sounds paranoia, look at what's already happening. In July, the European Parliament voted whether to keep scanning private messages. A majority voted against it, and it survived anyway. The old legislation basis expired in April, and the big platform announced they would be carrying on scanning regardless. So all the data, private messages, anything that you have spoken in a group chat, they will all be stored somewhere. And that data can be decrypted later. But guess what? You will be judged by the laws of that time. So today you might think it's just a joke and you can say it, but it might not be a joke in the future when they're decrypting it. Sit with that thought for a minute. We'll come back to that because it turns into one of the 4 ways to make money in this investment analysis. And that single fact creates an entire market of its own, completely separate from the machine. Because if that lock breaks, the whole world has to replace it. And that's an opportunity. Hold on to that because it turns into a biggest threat and a biggest opportunity simultaneously in this story. My name is Rahil Malik, and you are watching The Investment Thesis. This is the layer 9 of my 10-layer AI infrastructure framework, the security layer, and it's the one layer that doesn't get upgraded. It gets replaced. If you haven't watched that video, the link is somewhere, top, right, left, somewhere. Click on it, watch it, it will help you. None of this is a financial advice. All of it is for entertainment purpose only. Let's jump in, shall we? I'll start with the most important company and the choke points in this industry. This is about to change your entire perspective of how to look at quantum. There is a company called Bluefors in Finland. It is privately owned, and you've probably never heard of it. Last year, it earned 217 million euros. That is more revenue than any listed quantum computing company on the planet. IonQ, Rigetti, D-Wave, and Bluefors doesn't build quantum computers. It specializes in cryogenic cooling technology. The refrigerator a quantum computer sits in. It sells that refrigerator to Google, IBM, to the startups, and to its own direct competitors. It doesn't have to care who wins this race because it's selling the picks and shovel to everyone running in it. Keep that refrigerator in the back of your head because by the end of this video, a Finnish fridge is going to explain why 7 governments around the world wrote a law about it and why the smartest money in this sector isn't chasing the computer at all. But first, let's talk about the one you can buy right now. Bluefors is one corner of this. Let me show you the whole map. There are 4 places the money lands in quantum. Number 1, the platforms. Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, IBM. They build everything around the machine, so they get paid whichever machine wins. These are your hyperscalers, the lowest risk to this sector because you're not paying anything extra for the quantum part. Number 2, The pure plays, IonQ, Quantum, Rigetti, D-Wave, companies where quantum isn't a side project. It is the main business, with real revenue growing fast and priced for the future already. Third, the mandate. The company selling the new encryption because every bank and government on Earth now has a legal deadline to rip out the old locks, the only group where the buying is required by law. So that's an opportunity. Number 4, the chokepoint bets. The cooling, the amplifiers, the control electronics, the lasers. Bluefors lives here. They get paid whoever wins, and you already have the tools for judging every single one of them. Not the qubit counts, the error rate. That should be the headline every time you hear quantum computing on the news. Everybody assumes quantum computer will replace the one we already have. I think the far more interesting outcome is that they never do. They run side by side. Because a quantum machine cannot work alone. It needs classical computers to control it, collaborate it, fix its error in real time, and process what comes out. It needs cloud access to reach a customer. It needs software, wiring, and cooling. Which means the biggest winners might not be the companies building the processors. They might be the companies building everything around them. Number 1, Nvidia. Nvidia has the best designed position in this sector, much like in AI. And it doesn't build a single qubit. Remember, fact number 2, the error correction. Fixing those errors has to happen in real time, in microseconds. While the machine is running, that's a GPU problem, not a quantum problem, right? So Nvidia built NVQLink to plug GPUs straight into quantum hardware. When it launched, 17 of the companies building quantum computers had already signed up, along with 9 national laboratories. Nvidia never has to guess what machine wins. It doesn't matter what kind of quantum wins. It doesn't matter what kind of qubit wins. Whether that's the atom held still by lasers, supercooled circuits, or particles of light. Every one of them needs the decoding. Nvidia get paid if anyone wins. Now, the honest part, Nvidia is a $4.8 trillion company, priced on AI data centers, and it discloses no quantum revenue at all. So, you're not buying quantum here. You're buying AI and quantum rights along with it for free. Then comes Microsoft. Microsoft is the front door. Almost nobody is putting quantum computing in their basement. They run it through the cloud, and Azure Quantum already sells access to several different machines. Microsoft brings enterprise relationships and deliver the ecosystems, which is what they're best at. It also making its own hardware bet. In June, it published Majorana 2. Microsoft worked out that the aluminum in the first chip was destroying the qubits. So it swapped the aluminum for lead. The qubits went from holding their steady states for 20 milliseconds to 20 seconds. That's a 1,000-fold improvement in about 15 months. And Microsoft was confident enough to put its target for the working error-corrected machine forward from 2033 to 2029. The catch, it's a real one. The physicists are still arguing about whether Microsoft has actually built the kind of qubit it says it has, because it still has to be proved. Then Alphabet. Alphabet is the research leader here. In December 2024, its Willow chip did something remarkable for the first time. It got more accurate as it got bigger. Every previous attempt went the other way, where the more qubits just meant more confusion. Google published it and let other scientists check the work. So go back to fact number 3. That's the only milestone in this field that actually counts. So you get it sitting alongside other businesses such as the Google search engine, cloud, AI, and YouTube. So quantum doesn't have to work for this business to work, and it is definitely one of the interesting investment theses. Then comes Amazon, the most underpriced when it comes to the hyperscalers. Amazon start deliberately neutral AWS bracket sells access to several quantum providers rather than backing one. So if a winner emerges, Amazon just supports it. And it's building its own chip, Ocelot, which suppresses errors in the hardware itself. Then the biggest among all, IBM. IBM has the deepest program of any large company, bar none. Its newest processor, Nighthawk, runs 120 qubits and handles calculation roughly 30% more complex than the generations before it. It builds Qiskit, probably the leading quantum software platform in the world at the time of speaking. And it just took $1 billion from Washington to build America's first dedicated quantum chip foundry. One number to be careful here with, IBM says quantum is approaching $1 billion of signings, but that isn't the revenue. It's a deal signed add up over 9 years. And IBM earns $69 billion a year with a big fat B. So 9 years of quantum is smaller than a single week of IBM's earning. None of these are lottery tickets. They benefit if quantum grows. And not one of these companies needs quantum to work tomorrow. They can wait. They can sit on their hand, which makes them completely different from the next group. Now it get aggressive. Quantum is the footnote inside these giant businesses. Here, quantum is the main business. Most of these companies are experimenting with different technologies. Whatever technology wins, these companies will benefit the most because they're the one working on it. Company number one is IonQ. IonQ is the biggest. It holds individual atoms in the place with laser, which produces some of the most accurate qubits anyone has ever made. It did $64 million of revenue in a single quarter this year, up from $7.5 million a year ago. And it's sitting on roughly $2 billion of cash. But the story worth telling is this. What's it been buying with that money? It paid around $1 billion for Oxford Ionics. It owns quantum encryption company, and it's buying a chip foundry for $1.8 billion. In other words, they're trying to build a vertically integrated ecosystem for this computing, which can be massive. That tells you exactly what IonQ believes. The bottleneck isn't science here anymore, it's the supply. IonQ's share count rose 45% in the last 12 months. That's how all of this got funded, and the existing shareholder paid for it in ownership. Then comes Quantinuum. Quantinuum built the best machines on Earth in this category. It roses 99.9% accuracy on its 2 qubits operations. Go back to the fact number 3, accuracy is the whole game, and this is the company winning it outright. It ran the largest quantum IPO in history this June, raising $1.68 billion, and Honeywell still owns about half of it. Its published roadmap runs the Soul machine in 2027, then Apollo in 2029. And remember what Microsoft just did. 2 of the most serious builders on Earth are now pointing at the same year. The catch. For every dollar it earns in a year, investors are paying $436. And it's traded below its launch price since the day it's listed, like many other IPOs. Then comes Rigetti. Rigetti took the same road as Google and IBM, superconducting chips, the approach with most industrial momentum behind it. And it owns its own chip factory, which almost really nobody in this sector does. That's really something big. Its 108 qubit machine is live right now on Amazon, on Microsoft, and on its own cloud. So the developers are already building on it. That matters more than it sounds, because the platform people learn on tend to be the platform they stays on, much like the story of Nvidia's CUDA. That's why it's so hard to move from Nvidia. The catch: for every dollar Rigetti earns, the investor pays $494. And what you see in headlines says Rigetti turn a profit. Check where that profit came from. Nobody paid them anything. They came from an accounting rule, a number on paper that moved in their favor. Take that out, and the real business lost $26 million that quarter. Then comes D-Wave. D-Wave is already getting paid. It uses different physics that can't break encryption at all. So it went after optimization instead. Routing, scheduling, logistics. The unglorious problems companies pays real money to solve. It booked $29 million in one quarter, including a $20 million system sales and a $10 million deal with a Fortune 100 company. And it just paid $200 for quantum circuits, so it's no longer a one-approach company. Two more companies to be on your notice. Infleqtion sells atomic clock and navigation that still works when GPS is jacked. To defense customers today and for cash, a real business quietly funding a quantum bet, and the cheapest of the group relative to what it earns. Now, atomic clocks are also used in satellites, and the US is due to change quite some because most of the GPS system is coming of age. And IQM out of Finland grew the revenue over 90% last year, the fastest in the sector. So, again, how to tell them apart now? They're not ranked, they're sorted. Quantinuum is the quality, best machine, clearest roadmap. IonQ is the scale, most revenue, most cash, and the only one buying its own supply chain, aka vertically integrated. Rigetti is the leverage, smallest, most crowded architecture, most room to run. D-Wave is the one with paying customers today on problems they don't care whether Q-Day ever happens. And one more, Honeywell. Honeywell owns about 48% of Quantinuum, and that stake is worth $7.3 billion inside a $78 billion company, roughly 9% of the whole business, and its value moves every single day with a quantum share price. It's the only company on the earth whose share price actually move on this. Just don't confuse it with the aerospace business spun off this June under an almost identical name. That one has zero quantum in it, so just to keep that in mind. The hidden threat, Shor's 1994 algorithm, allow quantum computers to instantly solve the math problem underlying global digital security. It doesn't make the computers faster, it makes the impossible easy. The damage has already been started. Adversaries are actively copying and storing today's banks, traffic, government's cable, and private messages. This is called harvest now and decrypt later. They are waiting for a large enough quantum machine to read it once it's arrived. The problem is that the US government set a mandatory 2030 deadline to overhaul its system. This is the largest digital migration in the history, budgeted for, and it is non-optional. This sector have two players. Number one is the hardware and number two is the software. From the side of the hardware, you have SealSQ, bakes the quantum-resistant encryption directly into the silicon chip rather than bottling it on later. The company's revenue grew by 66% last year alone. Then comes the software bit. In software, we have Airquid. Airquid sells quantum-safe software to governments. For this investment thesis, the choke points the government has already found for us in this industry, and they have identified it and wrote it into a law. On September 6, 2024, the US published an interim expert rule creating two specific codes to cap the quantum scaling. Code 4A906, the quantum computer that controls any machine with 34 or more connected qubits. Then the second one is for coolers or cryogenic technology. The code is 3A904. This is to control the cryogenic dilution refrigerator delivering 600 microwatts of cooling power at 100 millikelvin or below. You might wonder why the coolers. Every qubit required a wire running into the core. Wire bleeds heat, a refrigerator remove only a few hundred microwatts, so the cooling capacity dictates how many qubits you can successfully wire up. By restricting the cooler, you make the computing or the quantum qubits obsolete. The United States offer an ultimatum to the global allies copying these laws or lose free trade access with the Washington. And most of these allies, as usual, fold to the Washington pressure. Quantum Alliance was formed, signed by 15 nations. The United States, of course, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italia, Spain, Canada, Australia, signed on day one. Denmark, Finland, and Japan follow suit. 11 days later, Norway, the Netherlands, and Slovakia followed in December. The cooling cartel, as it's come to known, only 7 countries have signed this particular agreement. The list consists of the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, Finland, Norway, and the Netherlands. agreed to restrict the refrigeration systems. Remaining 8 nations regulated the computer but left the vital cooling technology wide open. Act number 3. The monopolies and the 7 countries that signed the cooling control hold absolute dominance over the supply chain. Finland, home to Bluefors, they own roughly 1/3 of the global dilution refrigerator market. Finland already signed the agreement, so that's fine. Then comes the Netherlands, home to Leiden cryogenics fridges, Delft circuit internal cabling, a single point of failure. Q-blocks, control of electronics, and quantumware, superconducting processors. The Netherlands, you guessed it, signed the agreement in the late December 2024. Germany, homes to Topica, it's a privately owned company, and the revenue last year was north of 140 million euros. If you build a trapped ion or natural atom machine, you buy these lasers. Germany already signed on the deal, so that is off the chart. Then comes Britain. Britain owns Oxford Instrument, Nanoscience, the only major Western rival to Bluefors. In January 2026, it was sold to a private US company. The UK controlled the exports but failed to control the exit. However, the chokepoint has moved to the United States of America, and it is in their jurisdiction now. Yet 4 countries hold 5 critical single points of failure and exercise restraint from signing the document. Sweden, home to low-noise factory makers of cryogenic amplifiers that reads qubit signals without drowning them in noise, missing from both lists. Switzerland holds ID Quintic, single photon detector, and Zurich instrument control racks. Zurich Instruments control the racks. Zurich is owned by German company. So it operates from Switzerland, but the control is in Germany. So by and large, this one is under the control of the sanctioned regime, so to speak. Belgium houses IMAC, a non-profit pilot line industrializing qubits for basically anyone. Then comes Israel. It houses quantum mechanics, whose control hardware runs underneath almost every quantum computer built on the planet. So that's quite an important one. Export control only governs what leaves the country. Investment bank stops the cash from flowing out into the hostile territories. Since January 2nd, 2025, Americans are strictly prohibited from investing in Chinese dilution refrigerators. AI semiconductors required a treasury note. This is for the first time that a technology gets an outright ban completely, and that's the refrigeration technology. Meanwhile, China, obviously, it's building its own ecosystem. Quantum C-Tech claims a dilution refrigerator matching international standards. Origin Quantum is a mass-producing control electronics. This past January, a Chinese cryogenic startup raises $72 million. So the global map is leaky. You cannot buy the leverage. Bluefors, Topica, Low Noise Factory, Zurich Instrument, and Delft Circuit. Quantumware, IMAC, and quantum mechanics are all private or foreign-owned. The market has no way to price the leverage because nothing is listed yet. And that is where the opportunity lies. So, if you turn to public market, most of the products are flawed. There are about 24 funds with the quantum in their name. The giant 5.2 billion is the largest quantum position, and they have a mere 1.7% of quantum stocks. The rest are just standard tech, defense, and cloud. The pure play, small and highly concentrated, but incredibly volatile. The derivatives, 11 leverage and inverse product against 3 real funds. They reset daily and bleeds value in a choppy market. Quantum is not a date on a calendar. Q-day is not a date on a calendar. It is the 2 lines moving towards each other. Line number 1 is the math. The qubit needs to break RSA encryption in 2019. In 2019, the estimates was 20 million. By 2025, the better math cut to 1 million, and this February, the Pinnacle architecture paper cut it under 100,000. The target came 200 times closer because of the mathematician improve the ways to calculate. It's not the hardware. Then line number 2, the machine. Today's best hardware hold a few hundred clumsy qubits, yielding just a few dozen trusted error-corrected ones. When those lines touch, that is Q-day. Government read those lines and set the 2030 deadline Ask yourself, when you hear the headline, did the mistakes got down or it's just a promise? Quantum is the most speculative technology. So watch for these 5 traps. On timeline, the usefulness of quantum depend on its error correction breakthroughs. That have not happened yet. Then comes the architecture. Nobody knows what physics wins. Trapped ions, superconducting, photonics. You can be right about quantum and wrong about the company. And that is the risk you must be willing to take. Then is the economic capture. Quantum could succeed completely, but financial values might land with the cloud platform instead of machine build. Then is price and delusion. All the 8 listed builders combined generate just 300 million in revenue last year alone. They funded operation by issuing stocks, diluting your slice of stock. That is a real risk. And then the press releasing trap. France announced 1.5 billion for quantum, but auditor reveals only 111 million actually went out through the door. Never buy a stock based on the government press or announcement. That's just basically jargon. Then in quantum, quality and availability both runs in opposite direction. The surest revenue cannot be bought. So stop trying to pick a winner here. Choose a group and just go with that. You can buy a working tech business, getting quantum as a free lottery ticket. These hyperscaler will always make money. On the side of the pure play, you may pay an extreme premium for a seat if the machine arrives. However, you have to be wary that most of their purchases are coming from stock dilution, and that could be a risk. There will be a lot of companies popping out with the same claims, so you have to be careful. Mandate. You get paid by a strict legal calendar by 2030. Whether the machine works or not, this is a sure bet. They will definitely get the money and the profit will roll then. The chokepoints. You get paid in this sector either way, except the best ones are private in this sector yet. Follow the constraint, not the headline. The constraint is the error rate here, the code, and the components. Every technology have these constraints. In uranium, it's enrichment. In chip making, it's the lithography. Find the unlisted boring constraint where the money actually ends up. And you can easily spot the patrons in these markets. 29 is the exact year on Quantinuum's roadmap and on Microsoft target timeline. It sits 1 year ahead of the US government deadline. The technology may slip, but the deadline will not. That is where the money is moving right now. Which group would you stand in? Tell me in your comments and tell me if I got something wrong in this video. I had been severely sick during this recording and I had fever for the most part. So it was a very difficult record for me. Took a while and I tried on different days, trying different things. And the research was so dense. Every time I had to go back, restart, find a new angle. This truly took me one of the longest to research and record. And I will do another video on quantum because this surely is not enough. And there's a lot more to be researched here. So subscribe so you don't miss it. Most of the sources that I have found this information are, they would be linked in the description. None of these things are financial advice. Do your own due diligence. I'm only here to show you the direction. I'm just pointing out the obvious, and you are the one who will make your own decision. Thank you very much if you made it this far. Appreciate it.